What happens when couple lies to fulfill their wildest fantasy? I noticed her as soon as I walked in. She had told me online what she would be wearing and what she looked like. Soft beige blouse, tan-colored pants, dark shoulder-length hair. No one else even came close. I saw her eyes meet mine in the mirror behind the bar, and a soft smile appeared on her lips. Certainly beautiful, no doubt about it. She looked to be the 35 years old she claimed to be. Why was I even here in the first place? I didn't know myself, just curious, I guess. I planned this to be another chapter in the book I was trying to write, about human relationships, sexuality, the reasons for people's actions. "Are you Tia?" I asked, approaching her. Her nickname, short for Tiana. That's a beautiful name, I thought. "Sam? Yeah, nice to meet you." She held out her hand. It was soft and slightly damp, like she'd used some kind of lotion. "So how's the work on the book coming along?" I asked. Tia was also working on a book, a children's book, about a baby lamb and how it was raised by humans and then made its way into the world. We met on an aspiring writer's website. A strange way to meet, I suppose. She posted a couple chapters and they were good. My interest in her was piqued by my ranching background. We ended up chatting privately, and we all know how that goes. Yeah, some of it got pretty personal. It got to the point where I suggested we use webcams, but she didn't have any, and when we discovered we were less than 500 miles apart, Tia suggested we meet. By then, I already knew she was married and knew a few things about her situation. Married at 22, she was now fully caring for her husband, seriously injured in some stupid conflict. Confined to a wheelchair and unable to be a husband, a partner, at least in the normal sense of the word, their lives interested me. The possibility of sex crossed my mind. I had already done some experimentation, rationalizing it in my mind as a need to experience it to be able to write about it. So I went in search of an experience. There was an older woman, you could call her a cougar, I guess. She invited me into her hotel room while her husband sat in the living room. I gasped. What was he thinking? What was he feeling while we were having sex? She was his wife, his girlfriend, and I was having sex with her, and he knew it. I knew which half it was, but I had yet to somehow figure out the emotions of the other half. Not having a girlfriend of my own, I knew it wouldn't be easy. I felt that if someone was with my wife, I'd probably be pissed. The opposite didn't bother me in the least. I attributed it to research. There was also a pretty, overeager young lady who I enjoyed while her partner sat back and watched. I had a bit of a problem with her. Knowing that I had to perform created a situation where it wasn't so easy. But she knew what she was doing, and in the end, we pulled it off. The girl acted very pleasant, and I realized why when I saw her husband watching us, and the term less than wealthy would fit right in. I'm quite normal in that respect, and next to him I was just huge. It didn't make me feel good, but I was still able to put my feelings down on paper. It seemed to me that her husband compensated for his feelings of inferiority by forcing her to do everything on his orders. That said, the lady was very impatient, which contradicted this. There were many, many more. Some of them were wonderful, some of them not so wonderful, but they were all interesting. All of it fascinated me. What people do and think. We see people walking down the street, ordinary people, dressed, acting like everyone else, going about their daily lives. On their own, and sometimes not so much, very different things are happening. Matrona and her husband? Who would think that the night before, they were lying naked with other people, voluntarily doing things that would be shocking if publicized? Lying down and letting a stranger have sex with his wife? Yet in public it would never occur to anyone that this could happen? I've seen a lot of these things, been a participant in some of them. To me, it's fascinating. "I'm stuck on the X part," she said to me. I realized what she meant. I couldn't find any animal with a name beginning with that letter. I even spent some time looking for one. Tia was also an artist. Her drawings of every animal whose name began with letters of the alphabet were beautiful, and she sent me several of them. The letters of the animal's name formed a body that was really different. The lamb experiences as it goes through life and meets each one. She made the animals seem almost human, short bursts of text in childlike terms, beautiful illustrations. Her work was mesmerizing, yet completely out of step with what I was writing. My own work seemed pathetic to me. We were both completely different, but somehow we were drawn to each other. Perhaps you need to think of something else. Use it to complete the piece, I suggested. Maybe have the lamb fall down and then go to the vet to get an X-rays, I suggested. Tia wrote back that it was a great idea, and I was pleased with myself. Writer's hang-ups. It's very easy to back myself into a corner from which there's no way out. And God knows I'm guilty of it. "How are you doing?" asked Tia to me. I noticed that she had relaxed, and the initial blush had gone off her face. We both knew why we were here. "Things are going well. I still don't fully understand the male mindset." We had already talked about this, about how her life was completely devoid of sex. In words sent to someone online, it's pretty easy to be explicit. All it takes is hitting the send button, and that's it. It's done. Tom loves me. That's a big part of it. He wants me to be happy, content. I knew all this, of course. Tia had told me that her husband was no longer capable of having sex. It was he who suggested that Tia find a partner, a nice man who would fulfill her needs. The scenario interested me. It was different. I thought I was beginning to understand what cuckoldry was, that is, desire. Illegal by society's standards, but extremely common. It's different from mere voyeurism. Every man has something, some trigger that sets him in motion. Sex is something that all people have in common, in one form or another. That's what I wanted to capture in my book, the feelings and sensations behind the facade we wear. In the case of Tia and her husband, it wasn't a personal desire, it was one partner's love for the other, a man who wanted his significant other to experience life to the fullest. His own inability affected his loved one's life, which meant she had to endure his pain. Perhaps a way out had been found, had I? Tia and I were talking quietly. She was sipping her drink, the only drink she had. I was careful myself, stopping at less than half of my second serving. Alcohol and sex don't mix well. I knew that well from my college days. There was a dance floor, music playing. I asked her to dance, and she slid easily into my arms. Sometimes people just fit on the dance floor, and that was the case with Tia. We moved easily as one, and when the second tune ended, she looked up at me with a bright smile. "I'm ready," she said simply. I took her hand and led her to my car. I already knew she had taken a cab, so I didn't have to think about how to get home. 2 miles to 3rd Street, turn right, and it will be the 4th house on the right, she told me when I gave her a questioning look. We still hadn't discussed where exactly, my room or somewhere else. "Does your husband want to see it?" I asked. Between us, we were very clear on what we were going to do. "No, but he wants to attend," replied Tia. I started the car and we drove to the house, which turned out to be a cute one-story cottage in the neighborhood. The man in the wheelchair nodded to me as Tia opened the door. There was another moment of awkwardness, but that too passed quickly. Tom was about my height, his legs covered with a blanket. He was relaxed, as if he had just stopped by to visit a friend. Tia leaned over and kissed him, running her hand down his cheek. Then she turned to me. "Come on, Sam." She held out her hand. I took it, and she led me through the doorway into the large bedroom. As I slowly closed the door, I took one last look at Tom, who sat watching. He had an expression on his face that looked like he was content but didn't quite fit. Through the closed door, I could hear the soft music he had obviously turned on. Tia stood and smiled. Then she crouched on the edge of the bed. "I want you to undress for me, okay?" she asked. Taking a deep breath, I reached up and unbuttoned my shirt. There was no t-shirt underneath. Tia looked at my rather firm upper body with satisfaction. I really do spend a few hours at the gym every week. I half expected her to take off her clothes too, but she didn't. She just sat there and watched. I took off my shoes and socks, then reached for my belt. I stepped out of my pants, leaving only my underwear on. Then I froze for a moment. "So?" I asked. "That too," she whispered. I reached down and slid my panties down, stepping out of them. It was kind of erotic. No woman had ever sat and watched me undress before. It was usually a shared activity. "Good," Tia smiled. "Now you undress me." She stood up and walked a couple steps towards me. She flinched slightly at my touch. She walked back to the bed and sat up, pulling me with her. We had sex and it felt good. She felt very energetic. The first time was pretty quick. The second time I made sure of it as it lasted much longer. Afterward, we took a quick shower and Tia leaned against the tile. We wiped each other down with big white fluffy towels, then we both got dressed. In the living room, Tom sat in his wheelchair and smiled as he watched us walk out. There was another moment of slight awkwardness. After all, I had just had sex with this man's wife. "How did it go, honey?" he asked her. "Great." Tia giggled. "I thought it was very strange. To tell you the truth, the thought didn't leave my head all the way to the hotel room. I sat down and wrote it all down, creating a draft. The idea should be sexy, but I had already taken notes during previous conversations online. Some of them were just her letters. I printed them out as she detailed his injuries. Paralyzed, unable to walk or stand. All the next day, I worked on the chapter, and my thoughts kept coming back to how I felt. As for me, I guess I should say that I had much better sex, and almost always, without exception, it was with someone I'd known for quite some time. I felt like I knew Tia. We'd been socializing for months. I was still thinking about it when my plane landed at home. When I got home, the first thing I did was text Tia to thank her and tell her how much I enjoyed it. There was no response. A day or so later, I went to the author's website, but her nickname didn't pop up online. After a few weeks, I had all but forgotten about her. Maybe my capacity for love didn't appeal to her? I worked hard on my book. Some things turned out well, and some things I just couldn't get right, and I knew it. "It reads like you're talking about something that was on a TV show or something," my publisher said to me after reading what I sent in. "And that part about meeting Tia is probably as unerotic as erotic can be at all," he added. "I'll read it again," I told him. I knew he was right. So much of what I had written I knew perfectly well I didn't understand. 3 days later, I was already sitting on an airplane. I rented a car and drove to the small bar where Tia and I first met in person. My attempts to contact her online had gotten me nowhere. I drove to 3rd Avenue, turned right, and parked a half-block further down the street. It was a beautiful, warm day. There was a table on the side of the building with an elderly woman and a man sitting at it. Then Tia came out. She was wearing a flowery sundress. She had a jug of something in her hands. She set it down and joined the two elderly people. I heard the sound of a lawnmower running. It seemed to be coming from the other side of the house. Getting out of the car, I walked around to the other side of the street so I could see. Tom was pushing the car, and he certainly had legs. I finally realized the lengths some people go to. Why go to such lengths to satisfy illicit desires? Is it possible that almost nothing exists? Nothing is what it seems? I had no idea. I walked back to my rental car and drove back to the room. What was it all about, these games? Apparently, Tom was one of those people who enjoys someone having sex with his wife. Perhaps to avoid embarrassment, he had pretended to be handicapped to justify himself. Back in my hotel room, I sat staring at my laptop for a very long time. Those of you who write will understand me. Nothing was coming out. I got up, walked over to the bar, and ordered a drink. A few minutes later, a woman who looked to be in her late 40s walked in. She looked around, then came over and sat at the bar a stool away from me. Well-dressed, her top was unbuttoned enough to pique my interest. 5 minutes later, a man walked in and took a seat against the wall across from us. What a crazy thing to say. "Hi, how are you tonight?" I asked the pleasant-looking lady. "I'm fine, thank you. You're not from around here?" she asked, turning slightly in my direction. "No, I'm a writer on assignment." I grinned. "How interesting. What do you write about?" I moved to the stool next to her. "Why not? The end!"